Venimos a luchar, no venimos a invadir este país.
It was always immaculate. The grounds at Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster. Acres of sculpted grass rolled like velvet under the Jersey sky. Marble columns framed the main clubhouse, where guests in tailored suits sipped champagne and whispered about power. Inside, everything was curated. The lighting, the scent of polished wood, the stillness that made wealth feel eternal. But just past the polished suites and whisper-quiet corridors was a room no one talked about. That's where she worked. Her name is Victorina Morales. She is 52 years old. For nearly a decade, she cleaned Donald Trump's private quarters. She made his bed, laid out his shirts, wiped the base of his trophy cases until her knuckles cracked. Hired discreetly in 2014, Morales was undocumented. No papers, no protections. But someone in the chain knew and made sure she was onboarded anyway. To the outside world, Bedminster symbolized success. Inside, Victorina Morales lived by rules unspoken and unforgiving. Speak only if spoken to. Leave the room before he enters. If you fold the towels wrong, it's not just a mistake. It's an offense to the illusion. Back then, it was silence that kept her in place. But something has changed. In 2025, a new wave of foreign workers arrived, this time under legal H-2B visas. They were brought in for the season, signed and approved. Morales and others like her were discarded, their silence no longer useful. Now, with the illusion cracked and time catching up, Morales has stepped forward. This isn't just about a maid and a mansion. It's about what power hides and who it chooses to erase when the cameras stop rolling. What she uncovered now could destroy more than a reputation. Morales was born in a small town outside Guatemala City, where dust hung in the air and opportunity never stayed long. Her childhood was work. By 12, she was ironing shirts for her uncles. By 17, scrubbing floors in a downtown hotel. She didn't dream of America, not at first, but when her youngest daughter got sick and the hospital demanded money up front, the dream turned into a decision. She crossed the border in 2008, alone and terrified, leaving her children behind. New Jersey wasn't glamorous. It was cold, unfamiliar, and filled with long days in strangers' homes. She picked up odd jobs, kitchens, laundry rooms, day labor, anything that paid under the table. But in 2014, a woman she'd worked with before whispered about an opening at a place called Bedminster. They don't ask too many questions, she was told. The interview was brief. No paperwork, just a verbal agreement and a quiet nod from a supervisor. Days later, Sandra was handed a set of instructions and told to meet someone who could help her get what she needed. That meant false papers, a green card that looked real enough, and a fake social security number. It was all arranged for her. The message was clear. Do your job, stay quiet, and you'll be fine. Her first day inside Trump's private residence was surreal. The rugs were thicker than mattresses. The closet was color-coded, and everything smelled like money. She was nervous, but more than that, she was determined. She promised herself she'd do the work well, stay invisible, and send every cent home. She thought she'd seen it all, until one day it all spiraled out of control. Every day began before the sun cleared the trees. Morales arrived through the back gate, past the kitchens and delivery bays, into a world that demanded perfection without acknowledgement. Her first stop, the master bedroom. The sheets had to be pulled tight, military tight. No wrinkles, pillows fluffed just so, with the seam facing inward. Then to the bathroom. White towels rolled like pastries, each end folded to a triangle. One misplaced crease and she'd hear about it. Next came the closet. Dozens of identical white golf shirts, all hung by color gradient. Khakis starched, belts looped, shoes shined to a dry gleam. She used to joke with herself that even the toothpaste had an assigned direction on the sink. It wasn't a joke for long. Trump didn't tolerate deviation. Once, a hand towel hung too low and he exploded. Not just loud, furious. The supervisor took the fall that time, but Sandra knew better. She felt the air change when he entered. He didn't need to yell to remind them who held the leash. His silence could strip a room bare. In spring 2025, new faces appeared, young, smiling, legal. They wore matching uniforms and spoke with Eastern European accents. The new H-2B hires were introduced as temporary help for the season. Morales could feel it. These weren't supplements. They were replacements. Her hours dropped. Tasks were reassigned. No one said it out loud, but she was being pushed out. Quietly, deliberately. The new staff followed rules she once memorized. But something was different. There were whispers. Staff were told not to mention previous housekeepers. Morales' name vanished from schedules. Her belongings were boxed before she was officially let go. But something deeper was going on, something beneath the floorboards. Supervisors weren't blind to what was happening. They orchestrated it. Undocumented workers like Sandra were quietly shielded with falsified documentation, passed through the system almost seamlessly. Internal memos obtained in recent court filings reveal explicit instructions. One reads, "Appoint a liaison to guide workers through fake Social Security and green card processes." Their handwriting is unmistakable. Any paper trail must result in plausible identity, with managers ready to defend it. The memo also mentions a plan laid in early 2025, after official pressure mounted. The Trump organization arranged H-2B visa hiring for seasonal staff at Bedminster. It summarized plainly: shift from undocumented hires to legal visa holders to minimize risk, yet retain cheap labor. That same memo acknowledged how many of the original workers were undocumented. Some tipped off to leave quietly once visa workers arrived. This is more than hiring. It's exploitation backed by paperwork. Trump's public denunciations of undocumented workers echoed on stage, but behind the scenes, his businesses collected labor from the very people he demonized. As America's Voice noted, Trump hates legal immigration, except when he loves it. A contradiction only hidden until now. The gap between speech and action is clear. On one side, campaign rallies calling for a border wall and mass deportations. On the other, Bedminster running on the labor of silent, undocumented employees. The instant public scrutiny hit in 2019, dozens of staff were fired. Then, in 2025, new H-2B hires reappeared, keeping operations running under a legal veneer. They manipulated paperwork and people while the public narrative stayed intact. But the facade has cracks. DXP memos, visa contracts, and fired workers form a constellation of proof. And then the walls started closing in, on everyone, including her. They never said it outright. No one had to. The fear lived in glances, in clipped instructions, in the way supervisors stood too close when asking if your papers were still in order. Every undocumented worker at Bedminster understood the game. Obey the rules, stay invisible, and maybe, just maybe, you'd keep your job. But even that was never certain. In 2019, it happened fast. A news report exposed the Trump organization's use of undocumented labor. Within weeks, workers began disappearing. Sandra remembered the names: Rosa, Miguel, Elena. One by one, they were called in for meetings and never returned. No explanations, just missing faces at the laundry station. Their lockers were emptied without warning. It sent a message clearer than any memo. You're expendable, and you are alone. After that, the air changed. The silence deepened. Workers stopped chatting during breaks. No one questioned sudden scheduled changes or extra hours. You kept your head down, even when your back hurt, and your pay was light. Then, in 2025, the replacement began. Young workers on H-2B visas, legal, trained, smiling. They didn't speak about Rosa or Miguel. They didn't ask why Sandra's hours were cut. Control came dressed as order. One wrinkle in a shirt could mean a warning. One misstep during a VIP visit meant suspension. Once, Sandra found her name scratched out on the duty board without explanation. No one looked her in the eye. No one helped. She learned to move silently, with precision, like she was folding herself into the walls. It wasn't just the job anymore. It was survival. And with every shift, the silence pressed harder against her chest. But there comes a moment when silence feels heavier than risk. She couldn't stay silent any longer, but speaking out would unleash a storm. If Donald Trump ruled with volume, Melania Trump ruled with silence. She didn't yell. She didn't scold. She barely spoke to the staff. But when she walked into a room, everything shifted. Housekeepers stood straighter. Eye contact vanished. Tasks sharpened with sudden urgency. Her presence didn't explode like her husband's. It lingered, cold and precise. Sandra remembered the early days. Melania would walk through the corridor without a word, but her glance could reset the day. If a light fixture had dust, it would be fixed by noon. If a rug corner curled slightly, it would be tacked down before dinner. The staff learned to read her face the way children read weather. A raised eyebrow meant a room hadn't been cleaned to her standard. A pause at a hallway mirror meant something was out of place. She never had to say it. By 2025, when the new H-2B visa workers arrived, the dynamic changed. But Melania didn't. Her expectations remained exact. Her silence, even more cutting. The new workers were trained to follow procedures, but they hadn't learned the language of her silences yet. That's where Sandra still had the edge. She knew which room needed rechecking, which closet had to be reset, but it didn't save her. One day, Melania walked past Sandra as she vacuumed the upstairs hallway. She said nothing, just looked. Sandra nodded, waited. Nothing. No response. Just the soft click of heels, walking away. Hours later, her name disappeared from the shift board. No reason, no confrontation, just a blank space. The quiet had teeth, and it served a system just as much as Trump's anger did. The staff obeyed both forces, rage and restraint, without ever knowing which would strike next. No one realized they were all part of something far bigger, until it was too late. Sandra had lasted longer than most, longer than she ever expected. But by the time she turned 52, something inside her had shifted. It wasn't one thing. It was everything. The erased schedule. The new faces speaking in rehearsed politeness. The way her supervisor stopped calling her Sandra and started calling her you. It was the silence of the others. The ones who had been fired in 2019, never heard from again. It was the ghost of her own name, disappearing from the duty log, as if she had never existed. She kept working, even as the 2025 visa hires moved into roles she'd trained them to perform. She watched them walk the same hallways, hang the same shirts, press the same towels. But something felt colder now. Not personal, strategic. And then one morning, she overheard a conversation. in the service hallway. Two managers talking about optics, about a reporter sniffing around. One said, "Make sure nobody from the old crew gets near a camera." That was it. She went home, sat on the edge of her twin mattress, and stared at her hands. They were cracked and dry. Her wrists ached. Her daughter's photo stared back from the wall. Sandra picked up her phone and made the call. To a legal aid group a friend had told her about years ago, back when speaking out was unthinkable. Within weeks, her name reached journalists, investigators, attorneys, and for the first time, people were asking to hear her voice. But the truth has a price, and she knew it. Her neighbors stopped talking to her. Her phone buzzed with warnings, and she started checking her windows at night, just in case. She stepped into the light, but the consequences would thunder like a freight train. The moment Sandra's name appeared in a headline, the ripple effect began. Calls came in from reporters, attorneys, advocacy groups, even strangers who had once worked in shadows like hers. But it wasn't just the media watching. The Department of Justice quietly reopened files related to undocumented labor across several Trump properties, Bedminster among them. The New Jersey Attorney General's office, which had launched an inquiry back in 2019, began requesting fresh testimony. This time, Sandra was ready to speak. Her affidavit became part of a larger case file, one that now included testimony from other former staff and internal memos referencing the transition to H-2B visa labor in 2025. Documents unearthed during the process showed an organized pattern: a coordinated dismissal of undocumented workers under public pressure, followed by immediate recruitment of temporary foreign labor. Legal, yes, but still underpaid and easily disposable. Meanwhile, Sandra faced legal uncertainty. Her immigration status placed her at risk, and her decision to speak out hadn't gone unnoticed by ICE. A letter arrived from the Department of Homeland Security. Her deportation case was being reviewed. But this time, public pressure worked in her favor. Immigration attorneys petitioned for deferred action, citing retaliation for whistleblowing. Human rights organizations stepped in, offering protection under federal witness provisions. It was far from over. The Trump Organization, when contacted, denied knowledge of any improper hiring or internal threats, but the audit trail was building, and so was the public record. Sandra didn't ask for a spotlight. She only wanted the truth to stand where silence had lived for too long. Now, her name was on the record. Her face was on the news. Her words were sealed in court transcripts. The story she told read like a bombshell, ready to explode into the public sphere. Sandra's story is not rare. It's just rarely told. Across the United States, millions of undocumented workers perform the invisible labor that keeps elite spaces running. They clean the rooms, press the linens, cook the meals, and disappear before the guests arrive. They are essential but expendable, and their silence is part of the architecture. According to a 2025 labor report, over 130,000 H-2B visa workers were approved for seasonal service jobs across luxury resorts and private clubs, an increase of nearly 20% from 2020. Employers favor them not because they're legal, but because they're temporary, compliant, and disposable. Meanwhile, the Economic Policy Institute, EPI, has tracked a rise in wage theft complaints from both visa holders and undocumented laborers, citing a system that thrives on vulnerability. The contradiction is staggering. Politicians, including Donald Trump, have campaigned on cracking down on immigration, promising to protect American jobs, while quietly profiting from undocumented or underprotected labor behind closed doors. It's not a bug in the system, it is the system. The public hears about walls and raids, but in the kitchens and laundry rooms, it's a different story entirely. Sandra was part of that hidden workforce. Her hands kept the image alive, but once discarded, she had a choice: fade back into silence or reveal what she carried. She chose the latter. What her story makes clear is that this isn't just about one employer or one club. It's about how wealth and power feed off silence, about how entire institutions are built on people no one's supposed to see. This isn't a political piece, it's a human one. A worker who finally said, "Enough," and forced the spotlight toward the shadows. What this woman's voice unveils isn't just a scandal, it's a mirror for America. The grounds at Bedminster still gleam. The greens are cut, the fountains polished, the walls spotless. Guests continue arriving in pressed linen and quiet shoes. From the outside, nothing has changed. But behind the service doors, the staff quarters feel different now. Some rooms sit empty, some names have vanished, and somewhere in that silence, a voice once buried has finally echoed back. Sandra's story reminds us that luxury often demands more than money. It demands erasure of names, of faces, of the people who hold up the image. Her journey was never just about cleaning floors or folding shirts. It was about surviving in a world designed to pretend she didn't exist. She lifted the veil on a system built to silence and discard, and in doing so, she offered a rare, unflinching glimpse into what lies beneath power's polished surface. This is not the end of the story. Legal inquiries are ongoing. Testimonies are being collected, and others are beginning to come forward. If you believe voices like Sandra's deserve to be heard, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Your voice helps hers carry further. More updates are coming. Stay tuned. The silence has been broken.